Movie starts out. Pastor's in the pulpit preaching a sermon, finishes a sermon, goes outside. His parents are standing by a car across the way a little bit. Car, he waves to them. Car blows up. They die. So he's like obviously distraught. He goes back into the church. His colleague, Father Stewart, I believe is his name, comes over and is like comforting. And he says the comforting words that a pastor would give. He's like, that's what parents do. They die. He's obviously feels a lot better now. But then the pastor's like, you need to go travel and then look for answers. So he goes to China, naturally. He's wandering around the woods in China, as one does. And by the way, the woods look like it's in Ohio, but it's China. And then he's like looking at a compass and he's like, China is east. So he's clearly found some profound knowledge while he's out in the woods looking for himself after his parents' death. Oh, then a girl runs by in a gi, shot by a bow and arrow through the heart. He goes to her and she hands him a dragon's tooth, naturally, says dinosaur warrior, dies. Now all of a sudden the bow and arrow guy is coming after him. He stumbles back. The tooth, which is not sharp, slices his hand, falls backwards. Then it cuts and he wakes up back in his apartment, back in whatever city he's from. He gets up and he's like feeling weird. He's like, oh, I feel, I don't know, hungry. Foreshadowing. Then he goes and stumbles out of his apartment and he's like stumbling around. Then he's out in the street and then this bum's like, you got any change? And he's like, I have no earthly possessions, so I can't give you change. And then walks past him. Then we're introduced to a new character. Prostitute walks by. She gives him $1. Then she meets up with her pimp, whose name is Frankie Mermaid. Why is his name Frankie Mermaid? Because he's swimming in women. So that's why his name is that. So then the guy, his name's Doug, by the way, the pastor, he's like stumbling around still, stumbles into the woods, which is ironically where Frankie Mermaid told the girl to go to turn tricks. So now she's in the woods, and then she's gonna get mugged by this guy. And then Doug turns into a dinosaur, eats him, then goes back to the girl's apartment, and they're having like this cryptic conversation because he doesn't know what happened, and he wakes up and he's like looking under the bed, and he's like, I don't have any clothes on, so he thinks that maybe they did something inappropriate, and they're having this cryptic conversation. She's like, oh, I even peed myself, weird stuff like that. And then she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I'm talking about you turning into a dinosaur and eating people. And then he's like, well, that can't be. And you're like, well, of course it can't be, because you can't turn into a dinosaur. And he's like, exactly, because dinosaurs didn't exist. If it was been a fox, maybe he would have believed it, but he's like, well, dinosaurs couldn't exist, so I can't turn into a dinosaur, obviously. But she's like, I'll prove it to you. So I'll take you to the woods and show you the body that you ate. And he's like, okay, whatever. He's like, but I don't have any clothes on. And she's like, that's okay. I have a really short, bright orange dress that you can wear. So he puts that on. They go to the wood. He sees the body and he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And she's like, I'm a hooker. And he's like, whoa, don't touch me, Jezebel. Not with your sinning hands. And she's like, there's a low demand for hooker doctor lawyers, and I'm trying to get through school. And then he's like, I got to go do confession. Not like me confess, but I'm a priest, so I got to go to the confessional booth. So he just sprints there from the woods all the way to the church. And he gets in the confessional, and who's in there? Frankie Mermaid. He's got a blunt lit up, smoking, and he's like, you're probably like you can't smoke in the confessional booth. And he's like, well, I have to because my life is on fire, meaning like it's lit, so he can smoke wherever he wants. And Father Doug is like, well, why are you confessing? And he's like, I stole candy from a baby and then threw the baby in the river. I do drugs, sell drugs, and I murder people. And he's like, speaking of murdering people, I blew up an old couple in a car. Actually, it was right out in front of this church. And Doug's like, that's my parents that you blew up. So then he, like, his hands turn into dinosaur hands, shoots through the confessional booth, cuts Frankie Mermaid's throat. He's dead. Don't really talk about that anymore. It's just kind of the body's there, but nothing ever comes of it. So then he's like, I need to go to the hooker's apartment. Now he's on board with kind of the murdering now that she was into before, because he killed a really bad guy. But then they're talking and they're like, we got to get down like the rules. We got to get down like commandments because he's a priest. And they come up with only hurt bad people. So very, very long, hard thought rules that they come up with. Then they have like a montage and he's like eating people and she's like turning tricks and he's like shadow boxing and like doing kettlebell workouts and throwing medicine balls up and down. Not sure if that helps him be a better dinosaur, what have you. And then all of a sudden, Father Stewart from before sees the hooker with the guy, and they're like talking and chatting with each other. Oh yeah. Then it cuts to the woods, and there's like ninjas there. And the ninjas are like, yo, this dragon warrior is really hurting our supply chain because we move a lot of coke, as ninjas do. And so that's bad. We got to get rid of him. Cuts back to the doctor, or not the doctor. The priest saw them talking to each other, and he's like, got to talk to Doug now because he's like, yo, Doug, you can't hang out with people like that if you're a priest. It's only bad things for you. So he's going to go confront him. So he goes into Doug's office in the church. Doug's reading books, and he's got to hide the books from him. He's reading one of the books is called What Are Dinosaurs? And the other book is Crime 2. So he's pretty advanced in crime and like cracking down on crime. He's finished Crime 1, on to Crime 2. Crime 1 completely under his belt. But he hides him. And the pastor comes in and he's like, you can't hang out with her. And he's like, her name's Carol and she's nice. And then Doug's like, I can turn into a dinosaur. And the pastor's like, that's impossible. And then Doug gets him and he's like, nothing's impossible with God. So jot that down. And then God wants a lot of people dead is what Doug says. And so the pastor's like, you need an exorcism. So he's going to lock him in there and then go get to the diocese and get an exorcism set up. And then now they're going to go do the exorcism because Father Stewart doesn't want to wait for the diocese to approve it. So he's going to go to his secret guy. The guy looks like Joey Fatone from NSYNC, and he's got eyeliner and these earrings. And so, but then it flashes back to Father Stewart. We're going to flash back to Father Stewart. He was in Vietnam. By the way, one of his buddies in Vietnam also wore jeans while in Vietnam. Oh, and also the woods in Vietnam, same woods as all the scenes so far, but whatever. So then one of his Father Stewart's friends, his name is Ali, is like talking to him, and he's like, yeah, you got a girl back home? And he's like, yeah, I got a girl name's Adeline. And he's like, yeah, you should go home and then have a bunch of kids, have 10 kids, and then name one of the kids Ali after me. And then when the kid asks you why that's his name, you can say it's because of my war buddy Ali. And then he's like, you could smile, like this. And then Ali shot through the heart, dead. He's killed. So then cuts again. Father Stewart's writing a note. It's like, dear Ali's mom and dad. And he's going to write them and tell them how he got shot dead and killed. And then all of a sudden, Adeline's in the woods and she's yelling to him and she's like, yo, hey, it's me. And he's like, okay, come here. And then she runs over, gets 2 feet from him, blows up. The guy next to him is like, not much we can do for her now because she's completely disintegrated. And then the other guy's like, well, what was she doing in the forest? And he goes, I think she was trying to start a family. So that's kind of Father Stewart's story. That's why he became a pastor, on account of his girlfriend or wife blew up in Vietnam. So then now we're back to the exorcism. And the guy's wearing a cape now, Joey Fatone is. And he's like, what do you feel, Doug? Do you feel anything? To try to get the demons to come out. But the dinosaur seems to be coming out. And he's like, I feel hungry. And then his hands turn into dinosaur hands, kills Father Stewart. He's dead. And Joey Fatone's laughing. And then Doug runs out of there, back in the woods again. And then the ninjas come out because they're like, we're going to kill you, Doug. And then Doug's like, no, you're not, because I can turn into a dinosaur. Kills them. And then goes back to Carol's apartment. And Carol comes in. He's under a pile of newspapers, clothed. Not sure the significance of that, but he gets out of the newspapers and they look into his eyes. And he's like, I killed Father Stewart. And she's like, I don't know. And then they kiss. And then there's the big long montage, and now they wake up together in bed, and then ninjas come through, and now they're in the apartment. And then Doug and Carol just beat the crap out of the ninjas together. And one of the ninjas is like, before he dies, he's like, remember your faith. And then the pastor that he killed, Father Stewart, he's not dead. He's with the ninjas at their like ninja school, and he's got an eye patch now over over his glasses. And the ninja like leader is like, oh, I'm a pastor too, and we're dedicated to increasing the enrollment at our school, and we're like a pastor school, and so we sell drugs to do that, obviously. And then Father Stewart's like, well, how does selling cocaine, what does that have to do with Christianity? He's like, well, it has everything to do with it, because you convert unbelieving people with cocaine addiction. And then Father Stewart's like, Doug's gonna stop you. And then the guy's like, nah, I don't think so. Kills him. By the way, the main ninja boss has like his number 2 sidekick is like this blonde kid. We'll talk about that later. And then it cuts to Doug, and Doug's like, thankfully, and we didn't see this, but he's like, thankfully the ninja told me where the hideout was before he died, so we're going to go there and fight him. Then they get there, and then the blonde sidekick's like going to lead the charge, and he pulls his mask down. He's like, recognize me? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's my brother. And then it does this flashback, and all the families together, and they're laughing, and then the dad's like, I only have one son, which is, a normal thing to say. And then it like pans over, and then like the blonde one's standing like drinking orange juice, like, I'm your son too. And then they're in the car, and they're like sending Doug off to Bible school, and they're all like hugging, and then the brother pops up in the back seat, and he's like, oh, you're leaving me out. So he's mad. Doug's not a dinosaur, by the way, when he's about to fight these people, but he does have nunchucks. And then his brother's got a sword, but he like throws the sword down. He's like, I don't need this to beat you up. And then they start fighting, and then Doug's like, oh wait, I'm your ancestor too. So then he levitates the sword from the ground into his hand, kills his brother. And then, by the way, Carol, the hooker, she's there. She's fighting the ninjas too, and she's just whomping on them. But then a new ninja comes out of the tent, got a saber. She kind of just stands there, and then he slashes her. She's dead. Doug is like, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm really mad now. So kind of like Hulk slash, he turns into the dinosaur now, full-blown dinosaur, and starts just running train on these ninjas. Not really eating them, more just like hitting them with his head and tail, because it's like a person inside of a very bad dinosaur suit at this time. But the sounds in the background are like they pulled straight out of like Jurassic Park, like very good sounds, but very bad dinosaur. Then all of a sudden, the main ninja boss comes out. He's got a bow and arrow, shoots him in the leg. Doug instantly turns from dinosaur back into a person. And the guy's like, we have the antidote. So when I shot you, you not a dinosaur anymore, because we have the antidote to the dinosaur venom that turns you into a dinosaur. And then Doug's like, okay, I get that, but I have 6 words for you. And he's like, I don't remember what he says. It's like, my hands are immune. I think my hands are immune. And then he's got dinosaur arms still, and he kind of like pulls them out, rips the guy's head off of his shoulders. He's dead. They win. Now it goes to the hospital. Just cuts out of there to the hospital. And doctor comes in, because apparently now he's taking care of the hospital. I guess she wasn't dead. Doctor's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, yeah, you can go see her. And she's sitting not in a hospital bed, like inpatient, but like she's sitting in one of those raised seated beds that you go into like when they check your blood pressure in the doctor's office. And she's wearing normal clothes, but just has like a gown over it. And she's like, I'm totally fine. And they're like, okay. And then they cut out to a field, and he's wearing like a leather jacket and a wife beater, smoking a cigarette now. Naturally, Doug smokes now. He's quit becoming a pastor, and he's going to fight crime now. Oh, by the way, after he killed the boss, then this quote came up, and it was like, the only way to get world peace is to end violence. And so, like, that's foreshadowing, because that's going to be his mission now. He's going to use violence to end violence. So, yeah, they're by the car, and he's smoking a cigarette, and they're like, what are you going to do now? And she's like, well, there's going to probably be more ninjas. And then it kind of pans out, and the movie's over. So, that's basically it.